Good evening, everyone. We'll start shortly. We'll just wait for a couple of more minutes for other participants to join, and we'll start by 4:35. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'll just start. I think most of the people have joined, and we'll see further if some of the people join at a later stage. So I'll just start. So, first of all, good evening, everyone. I would like to introduce Mr. Nazm Belgrami, who heads the financial lines underwriting for Tata AIG General Insurance. And he has an extensive 19 years of insurance industry experience and has witnessed and contributed to the changing insurance landscape in India, especially when it comes to cyber insurance. So, upon educate us on the importance of cyber insurance and other good cyber practices. So, I will just hand it over to you, Nazim sir.
Uh, Abhinav, thank you so much for setting the context. And as you mentioned, like we are going to speak about a new age risk, which is cyber. And why we are talking about cyber, it is very important for all of us to understand. And allow me 30 seconds just to share my slide with you. So when I'm talking about this particular risk, as an organization, when you look at companies see various kind of exposures. It starts with act of God perils. You see companies suffering from credit risk. Companies have issues with respect to political risk, war, and so on and so forth. But when you look at cyber insurance, suddenly why everybody is talking about cyber insurance? What has changed? So as we all know that data is the new oil, wherein like if you look at the 10 largest companies across the globe, 7 of them are data company. And of course, like along with the what you call companies are getting the mileage from data. At the same time, the other side of the coin is the cyber exposure which the companies are experiencing, and the exposure is as big as, like, now cyber has become one of the biggest exposure. It is in fact the biggest exposure when you look at various report which is getting published by various reinsurers as per their own experience, as per their own claims experience, vis-a-vis even big force confirming or certifying that the cyber has become biggest exposure for any organization. In fact, uh, KPMG reports suggest year on year, approximately around 70% Indian companies gets compromised. And see, why this risk is very different from all other risk, and that's why we see, like, when you are talking about cyber exposure, it is very dynamic in nature. So starting from the kind of losses which it brings, the type of attacks which are happening across the globe, the type of vectors, the type of actors which are playing in this specific area. So when you look at cyber, it is just the cyber mean is just not limited to criminals who are using this to make money out of this particular act, but even nations, militaries, spy, all these are behind this particular tool, and they are maximizing it by using various cyber tools, various cyber attacks on the organization. And that's why, like as I said, it is just not limited to those criminal, and that's why you see people are just not trying to make money out of it, but there are, as I said, nations behind it who are like attacking other nations, not by those physical means, but using cyber tools, cyber mechanism to uh, disrupt their economy, disrupt their day-to-day life. We have experienced this while the recent Russia and Ukraine issue, wherein Ukraine have suffered severely due to this cyber impact. In fact, when we are talking about this, like we all know, like NotPetya incident, wherein almost 18% of the Ukraine population was in dark for hours due to this cyber attack, wherein like they took control of these utility services of Ukraine, and then subsequently the country was unable to function. So all these things are making this exposure bigger and bigger. Now, as I said, like when you look at, as I said, this exposure from various other exposures, as I said, when you look at AOG perils as an exposure, it is limited to those particular areas when there is an impact. But again, classic example was WannaCry incident when it happened in 2018. More than 40 countries got impacted, and when you look at the number of insureds or number of companies got impacted, more than 1,000 companies were impacted. Although when you look at the incident or the that ransomware attack, it was targeted to healthcare industry in UK, but it got misfired, and then subsequently there were like various entities, including many Indian companies got impacted. The other very important thing which we have to like keep in mind, that it is just not limited to one or two geography. Somebody sitting in anywhere in the world can create issues, create havoc in other countries. Similarly, when you look at even industries, and I can tell you, like AIG was the first insurer to introduced this product in 1997 in US, and we were the first one to introduce this in Indian market in 2014. And when we review the claims, when we look at the claims, what we have identified that more than 75% of the cyber incidents, the root cause is ransomware. And as I mentioned, this risk is very dynamic, so it's just not impacting one or two industries. Probably, like I can tell you, like when we introduced this product, the first buyers or the people who are attracted towards this product were financial institution and the IT companies. But when you look at today and during the pandemic, what we have observed, it is more than financial institution or IT companies. Manufacturing setups, industrial setups, pharma companies, these were the industries or companies who have got targeted. The other very important thing which we have to keep in mind about this exposure, when we are talking about a cyber incident, practically, if I ask this question to all of you, probably you will say that if there is a cyber incident, it will be a data breach. If suppose the news is in public domain, the data will get compromised, whether it's a company's data or a third-party data in your system, that will get compromised. And also when we are talking about news being public, there will be a public embarrassment, goodwill loss to the company. But I can tell you there are a whole lot of things which happens when there is a cyber incident against any organization. And there are like classic examples like Target Retail and all, wherein practically all these things which I have mentioned on this particular slide has happened with them, starting from huge public embarrassment when the news was in public domain. In fact, the impact of this news, because it is still one of the biggest data hack, wherein 72 million customers debit card and credit card details got compromised. It impacted severely on the organization, wherein like the footfall of the customers were significantly low as more than 50% customers stopped visiting to those stores, because they were scared that still if those bad actors are in their system, their data, their debit card, credit card details will get compromised. So it impacted in loss of customer, subsequently the revenue, and hugely impacted on the reputation of the brand. In fact, after all this, there were like several regulatory actions happened to understand what kind of privacy laws, what kind of data protection provisions posture which the organization is having, whether they are complied with those IT acts, IT laws or not. Leading to that, organization has to take a lot of corrective actions. And I can tell you, the story doesn't stop here. After that, there was a class action suit against the directors and officers of the company, stating that you failed. So the shareholder came together and they sued the company in a US court, stating that you failed in your duty to have a good cybersecurity system in the company, and which led to this incident. And today our share prices have got impacted due to this. And it was more than $100 million class action suit against the directors and officers for their mismanagement. After all this, all the banks came together and they sued this particular company in US, asking that now we have to issue 72 million new debit card and credit card, who will pay for it? So they have asked for damages for issuing new cards as well. So if you look at the kind of impact which it can bring for an organization, and we have seen, like I'm talking about an organization in US, but I can tell you, like there are several news available for the Indian organization, starting from pharma companies to IT companies in India, banking organization, wherein they have suffered severely due to these cyber incidents. So as I mentioned, that 72%, and there is a story behind it, like why we are so sure that yes, 72% claim root cause is ransomware. So when we started analyzing our claims data, what we have noticed that out of 100 claims what we have received, 100% claims which we have received, out of 75% claim or more than that, the root cause is ransomware. And that's why, like when you look at when we start involving with our customer in terms of like offering them a cyber insurance policy, what we see and what we try to analyze for the customer is their ransomware posture. When we try to understand like where you stand when it comes to cyber security posture, especially focusing on the ransomware posture for the organization. Another very important point before I move to the policy coverage, I would like to highlight that cyber is becoming more and more complicated because all the privacy laws which are getting introduced across the globe. So in 2017 May, GDPR have got introduced. Now we also have DPDP Act, which will get enacted soon. And when you look at the kind of investigation provisions, the kind of fines, penalties, the kind of responsibility as an organization in terms of holding the data, processing the data, taking consent from the data owners, the data principals, is significantly high. And of course, organization need to comply with it. They have to make huge investment to comply with the privacy laws. And not only that, there are significant fine. When we are talking about GDPR, it talks about 20 million. 20% of your global revenue. When you look at our DPDP Act, there are provisions for fines from 50 crore to up to 250 crores. So as I said, like all these things are making this particular exposure very complicated. Now, when we started analyzing that how this can be addressed, so there are three areas what we have identified, that there are three areas in which companies should look at investing, not only in terms of money, but in terms of even increasing the knowledge of their employees. One very significant area, and which leads to almost 40% of the cyber claim, is the awareness of this exposure. When we are talking about the awareness to the employee and awareness to your outsourcers, those third party with whom like you're closely working and outsourcing your work. In fact, as high as 25% of the incident, what we have noticed, and various other reports which is getting released by various security agencies also substantiate that more than 25% of the incident happened because the employees are unaware of this exposure. So they go and click on links which they are not supposed to. They fall pity on the phishing attacks. They don't understand those business email compromise attack and click on those links, visit on those websites which they are not supposed to visit, and those bad actors get access to your systems, and then which leads to these data breach incidents. So apart from your technology and process, which is of course require investment, and it requires continuous investment. As I said, like this risk is very different from all other risks, wherein like if you're talking about a protection from all these AOG perils or a fire exposure, you do those one-time investment and you're at least sure about next 5 to 10 years, you don't have to make further investment in those areas. But when you look at cyber as an exposure, practically every day you have to look at where you stand vis-a-vis what those threat actors is bringing on table. So it's a continuous investment for any organization. At the same time, you have to have those updated technology. Like when we are even talking about what we find when we review the risk for our insureds, basic things as basic as multi-factor authentications, they are not complied with, and which leads to significant exposures. So as I said, like when you look at technology and process, you definitely need investment. But when it comes to your training to your employees or to your vendors, I think that is something which every organization to start now, so that they can avoid this 40% of the exposure which is coming. Another very important thing which we have realized, like as I said, during pandemic, what we have noticed, it is more than financial institution or IT companies. These were manufacturing companies, these were pharma companies, these were industrial setup which has got compromised. Now there are inherent risk in all these organizations. So when you look at all these exposures, like whether it's manufacturing or industrial exposure, safety was always their concern. They always thought that safety is their major concern, and they have always addressed. So practically when you go to a factory, they will ask you to wear helmet, they will ask you to wear gloves, they will not allow you to go beyond a point of beyond a certain point. So they were always concerned about the safety, and that's why they take care of all these safety measures. But when it comes to security, they never thought that security can be a concern for them. And that's why when you look at even the technology which they use, like whether it's the ICS system through which they run their factories or industries, or the newest technology which is industry 4, these technology practically lack features like encryption, password protection, and things like that, and which leads, like, they become an easy target for hackers. The other area what we have identified, like all these industries or factories are continuously using those end of life, end of shell technologies. Now what it cost is, like, when you look at these companies, they're more than happy to invest. When you tell them that if you invest in this technology, probably your production will go high by 2 times, 3 times, they're more than happy to invest, and that's the global phenomena. But when you ask them to invest on, let's say, firewall or other security measures, they always have this in mind that we are not the target, nobody will hack us, or we don't have any data as such for which we get hacked. And this is one of the primary reason why they never thought this as a concern, and they never invested in all these technologies. And today they have become one of the biggest target. If you remember my previous slide, manufacturing is targeted more than the financial institution or the what you call professional services organization. Moving to my next slide, wherein, like, we talk about cyber as an end-to-end solution, and why we say so, because when you look at role of an insurer, the role of an insurer is, like, you insure your policy, whether it's a health insurance policy or a fire insurance policy, or let's say it's a transit insurance policy. The role of an insurer is to pay the indemnity. If there is a loss to the insured, the insurer goes and make the payment for that loss. But when it comes to cyber, uh, because we are operating since 1997 on this field, we have realized that if we are only providing indemnity to the insured, practically after some time we ourselves will not be able to insure this kind of exposure, because it is so dynamic and the impact is so severe that we may not able to provide solution to our insureds. And that's why, like, we have changed our course, wherein, like, we just don't provide indemnity when it comes to cyber insurance policy. We start working with the insured from day one, wherein, like, they decide to buy a cyber insurance policy. And we call it pre-placement and post-placement services. And when I'm referring pre-placement services, practically the day you decide to buy the policy, we help you with the reports like bedside report, which help you understand where you stand when it comes to this cyber exposure. So to talk about bedside in a layman term, I can tell you, like, this company monitor all the outside observable data, all your URLs, and basis which they rate you. So practically when you approach us for an insurance, we reach out to Bitside, we get the report generated for your organization. We do share that report also with you to make you understand where you stand in terms of cyber risk posture vis-a-vis all your peer companies. And this helps you to understand, like, what kind of patching cadence which you have. This helps you to understand what kind of end of life technology which you are still using in your systems, and how it can be how it can impact you in terms of the cyber exposure. So all that we do have our own cyber risk consulting team, wherein, like, our cyber risk consultant come on call, explain you what they see globally when it comes to your industry. So let's say practically I'm talking about a pharma company, or let's say I'm talking about a banking institution. We practically go back to our insured and inform them what kind of cyber incidents which we are seeing globally against pharma companies, globally against banking or IT company, and help them to identify those crown jewels so that they can start investing, start protecting those crown jewels of the company. Similarly, like post placement, we do a lot of activity in terms of providing solutions through various agencies which helps the insured to train their employees. So there are like tools, and there are companies with whom we have tie up. Like TechGuard is one of the company which is leading company in US in terms of providing the cybersecurity trainings to the employees. So we allow our insured to access those modules, wherein up to 10,000 employee of the company of the insured can access those training modules to understand cyber exposure, how to identify those phishing attacks, and things like that. Similarly, like post placement of the other thing which we do, we start monitoring our insureds on dark web. So if there's any data of our insured is getting compromised or available for sale on dark web, we proactively go and inform our insured that this is what we notice on dark web, and ask the insured with the help of our cyber risk consultant to mitigate those exposures. There is a statement by ex-FBI director called Robert Miller, and he says there are two types of organization across the globe: one who has got hacked, other who's going to get hacked. Okay, so nobody can claim that they have such a good system in place wherein they are sure that they will never get hacked. So there is a history of the safest and the biggest of biggest organization getting compromised, and that's why like we have a whole lot of vendor tie-ups to help our insured that tomorrow if there is a cyber incident, they should be knowing like whom to approach. And as I said, like these tie-ups are just not at India level. Even if you have subsidiaries or offices outside India, vendors in place, and vendors as reputed as CrowdStrike or Kroll or Horizon, who can like help you in terms of forensics activity. Not only that, even law firms, we do have those negotiated tie-ups through which we can help you in notifying your claims to various regulator, various stakeholders, your shareholders, so that the issue can be addressed as soon as possible, and the impact of the incident can be mitigated. Moving to the next important slide, from where I would like to speak about what basically policy covers. And when you look at cyber insurance policy, it's a third-party legal liability policy. And I'm highlighting that it's a third-party legal liability policy because when you look at the construct of the policy, it provides protection not only to the insured when there is a cyber incident, but it also provides protection to the insured from the third-party legal liability claim which they may have. Let me give you an example from a banking side. Let's say, suppose when you look at a bank, they hold a lot of individual data in terms of like the individual details, their name, their banking details, password, their Aadhaar card details, their PAN card details. And if suppose there is a cyber incident wherein you have a exposure of these data getting compromised, the policy do respond not only in terms of damages, but even the defense cost gets picked up. So if suppose you holding a third party data which leads to a exposure wherein actual or alleged claim on you, and you need to hire a law firm to defend those charges, and subsequently if there are any damages awarded against you, the policy do cover that. And that's why, like as I said, like when you look at policy, the policy is divided into two sections. First section of the policy talks about the first party damages which gets covered, and we will of course discuss that in detail in the next slide. And the policy also covers the exposure coming from the third party legal liability side. So these are the two coverages section of the policy, which talks about various coverage offered under the policy. Similarly, there are two areas wherein the policy restrict cover. That means those exposures are not covered under the policy. And I would like to highlight that as well to you, that what exactly is not covered under the policy. So as I said, like when you look at the policy, there are coverages available for first party, there are coverages available for third party legal liability. Similarly, there are exposures for the first party which is not covered under the policy, and similarly there are exposures which you may have as an insured coming from third party that is also not covered in the policy. So I would like to highlight all the four sections to you. And moving to my next slide, wherein I am going to speak about the first party damages. So when you look at the first party damages under the policy, like what exactly insurer offer when there is a cyber incident to the first party, that means the insured. So if suppose there is an incident, and policy is as broad as it talks about actual or alleged both incident, even if there is an allegation against a breach at the insured end, and let's say insured is hiring a law firm or a forensics firm to substantiate that probably their system has not got compromised and this data breach has not happened from their system, even if they're hiring those law firms or forensics firms, the policy do have a provision to pick up those expenses as well. So let me start with the most important cover, which is the response cost cover. So if there is an incident, the first and the foremost important cover is the forensics cover, wherein you hire a IT expert to identify what has happened in your system, what all data has got compromised, which all system has got breached, and subsequently what all data has transferred from your system to probably like those bad actors system. All of this, like when you look at these forensics firm, as I named, like starting from CrowdStrike to Arete to Ankura to Mandiant, all these firms practically charge hourly professional fee to investigate the matter. And the policy do pick up all the forensics cost, the professional fee which they charge to investigate the matter. The policy also pays the credit monitoring, wherein like once these data has got compromised, they get sold on dark web and subsequently gets misused by various bad actors. Now you practically need somebody to sit and monitor how that data which has got compromised from your system is getting used or misused in the cyberspace. Again, the forensics guys do the monitoring activity, and the policy do have a provision to even pick up the monitoring cost under the policy. And I can tell you, like when we are talking about the monitoring fee, the monitoring fee could be as high as like we noticed a claim 2 years back, wherein health insurance, one of the largest health insurance company in US, there was a theft of a pen drive from their office. When they informed this to regulator asked them to keep that data on monitoring. 2 years monitoring cost which they paid, it was somewhere around 1.7 million, which is like somewhere around like 12 to 13 crore Indian rupee. So the policy do respond to those monitoring cost as well. The policy also have a provision to pick up the notification cost. Now when I'm talking about the notification cost, in the privacy law, whether we are referring GDPR or we are referring the DPDP Act, which will get enacted soon, there is a provision of notification to the data principal. So if suppose from your system, the individual, let's say suppose we are talking about an insurance company like us, if suppose there is a data breach at our end and individual customer data has got compromised, as per the notification provision under the Privacy Act, we supposed to notify within a timeline to all those impacted parties and make sure that they receive the communication and take the corrective actions so that the impact of the breach can be mitigated. Now, when you look at practically, the notification brings a huge cost for an organization, because practically you have to reach out to all the individual parties to inform them about the incident and subsequently suggest them the measures which they take to correct the or mitigate the exposure. The policy do cover the notification, and let me tell you, like when we are talking about the notification cost, average notification cost comes from $5 to $7. So imagine if we are talking about a 1 lakh customer data breach, what kind of cost the insured will incur, and that gets responded under the policy. The policy also covers the crisis management cover, wherein whether if there is any public relation expenses which has to be incurred in terms of like mitigating the exposure towards the organization or even against the directors and officers of the company, the policy do have provision to even pick up those professional fee charged by those agencies. The policy also picks up the legal cost. So as I said, that policy do respond to actual or alleged, both type of situation. So whether it's a data breach or breach of data protection law, whether I'm talking about the breach of GDPR or breach of DPDP Act, if there's any investigation against the insured, followed by fine and penalties, the policy do have a provision to pick up the professional fee which you will pay in terms of substantiating or representing you in those investigation. Not only that, the policy do have a provision to even pick up the fines and penalties which are civil in nature and insurable under the law. The insurer even do have a provision, the insurance policy even do have a provision to pick up those expenses. One of the very important expenses, and let me tell you, like we started talking about this exposure being a dynamic exposure, and I can tell you, like initially up till 2015-16, the major expenses we as an insurance company under the cyber policy, what we paid in terms of forensics, those professional fee against the bad actors. When there is a cyber incident, like we used to pay those professional fee. But 17-18, what we have identified, what we have noticed, that there were like a lot of ransom extortion demand. So starting from WannaCry to NotPetya, like in all these cases, there was a huge ransom money which has got demanded by those hackers, bad actors, by the impacted party. And policy has responded to those ransom demand. I can tell you, like when we are talking about the ransom demand, as high as up to 40 million has been paid by a US insurer in a ransom demand. And of course, like I'm referring US organization, considering like we are talking about all these legal liability policy and not referring like many Indian names, although like when you look at newspaper or probably practically Google about these organization, you will find a lot of Indian names as well who have gone through these situations, paid huge ransom, as huge as like 6 to 10 million. We have witnessed those cases. And specifically when we are talking about extortion money, which the policy do address, there is a separate slide and I would like to take you through, because there are a lot of moving parts to this particular exposure, and I think there is this needs some at least 5 to 7 minutes discussion on that particular exposure. But before I move to the extortion expenses, the another very important thing which gets covered under the policy is the revenue loss, the net profit loss of the insured due to this cyber incident. If I have to give you an example, so in 2015, if you remember, in December 2015, Aramco got impacted due to significantly like high cyber exposure, and 35,000 computers of that particular company got severely impacted, which was controlling the supply of the oil. And when you read about this case study, it was so horrifying incident wherein company was practically operating manually for 2 months, and there was huge wastage of oil because they were not able to control the supply of the oil. And in fact, there are news wherein like this particular company was distributing oil without any charge, because as I said, otherwise it used to be it was a complete wastage. So they were distributing oil for free in that particular jurisdiction. So what basically here we cover, if suppose there is a cyber incident due to which either you're unable to function or you go through a similar situation which practically Aramco went through, the insurer will pick up the net profit loss, the revenue loss which you have incurred during the network interruption period. Remember, your fire policy, your property policy do have a loss of profit provisions, but at the same time, when you look at your cyber or a property all risk policy, it very specifically exclude any exposure arising from cyber. And that's why like to handle that exposure, you need to have a cyber policy in place, because your property policies will not address those exposure. So the policy do cover, as I said, the revenue loss. The policy also covers the restoration cost of the lost data. So if suppose there is a cyber incident due to which you lose the third party data as well as the first party data, the policy do have a provision to identify whether that data gets recreated or not, the cost of those professional fee of those forensics guy, and subsequently to recreate or restore that data, the amount which you incur, that is also covered under the policy. We spoke about extortion, and practically, like as I said, like now we see various companies in various industries getting impacted due to cyber extortion. And see, I was talking about like what we have seen and what kind of claims which we have experienced since 1997 till date, and in India like since 2014 till date. As I said, initially all the expenses were on the forensic side, then it moved to ransomware, and later what we saw, especially in 2019-20, and even during pandemic, was this business interruption exposure, wherein a lot of organization wherein their control has been taken by these bad actors, and they practically asked ransom or disrupted the operation of the organization, which led to huge net profit loss to the company. The another very important slide which talks about the third party damages, and as I said, it's a legal liability section of the policy. So what it basically says that if suppose you have a third party legal liability claim on you, wherein a third party is coming and suing you for breach of individual data or breach of corporate data, the policy picks up the defense cost, wherein you are defending those charges, and the damages which probably may have been awarded against you for breach of those third party data. So both these provisions, like both these situations, as I said, like defending those charges, and subsequently if there's any damages, the policy do respond to that. The policy also provide protection with respect to third party data. The restoration cost, as I said, like the defense, which is the legal expenses, do get covered. Even if suppose there is third party data gets compromised from your system, the policy do have a provision to even pick up the credit monitoring cost, which is available for the first party as well. The policy also covers the intellectual property of the third party. So when you look at practically these motor manufacturing companies or a pharma company, they use a lot of designs, a lot of third party IPR to develop their product. Now, if suppose those IPRs or the data of third party corporate data gets compromised from your system, and now they're coming and suing the insured for the breach of those IPR or the third party data, the policy do have a provision to pick up that as well. Now, next two slides, which I'm going to discuss about the exclusions under the policy. So, and very important point which you have to keep in mind, that this policy is meant to cover the non-physical damage. So any physical loss to the property, and let me give you the same example of Aramco, wherein like we spoke about the exposure what they have encountered after their 35,000 computers got severely impacted due to the cyber attack. The policy will pay for forensics costs, policy will pay for monitoring cost, the policy will pay for business interruption cost, but the cost of those replacement of those 35,000 computers will not get covered under the cyber policy, because as I said, bodily injury, property damage is an exclusion under the policy. So any physical damage, whether it's a first party damage or the third party damage, policy completely exclude that. You may probably look at your property policy or a CGL policy, the general liability policy, to respond to those losses, but definitely your cyber policy will not respond to those expenses. The another very important thing which I would like to highlight is the cyber policy doesn't cover the first party data. So when you're talking about your own company's data, it could be your financials, it could be your business plan. Probably like when you look at us as an insurer, maybe we are developing a unique health insurance plan which is in our system, we have invested heavily on that, and now suppose there is a cyber incident due to which this particular product gets compromised, and now probably either it is on public domain or these bad actors sell it to somebody else, this product. Now I will lose the exclusivity, and probably we may be anticipating that we will earn 5 to 10 or 20 crore yearly from this new product, we will lose the future revenue as well. But the cyber policy will not pick up all these revenue which probably you may generate from your first party data. So first party data is an exclusion under the cyber policy. Including your own intellectual property is an exclusion under the cyber policy. Another very important thing is the policy doesn't cover the first party financial loss. So if suppose there is a cyber incident, and a classic example is a bank wherein like the money has been taken away from their own system and it's bank's money, the cyber policy will not respond to those losses. Practically your banker's indemnity policy or a crime policy will respond to such kind of losses. Moving to the exclusion which is available for third party, as I said, any physical damage to the third party property is not covered under the policy. Again, any bodily injury for third party due to cyber incident is not covered under the policy. The policy also not covered any financial loss to the third party. See, a data breach leading to a financial loss, which is a consequential loss, will get addressed under the data liability section of the policy. But if it is just a financial loss due to a cyber incident, the policy will not respond to those losses. Before we move to the question answer session, a very important thing which I would like to highlight, and especially because ransom and extortion has become one of the biggest exposure, and we see practically every third or fourth case wherein ransom money has been demanded by these hackers. And I can tell you also like why this exposure has become suddenly very big for the insureds and for all the organization, including us. Because when you look at on the other side, the bad actors, they have become very sophisticated. Practically, they have ransomware as a service group wherein they are facilitating people to with the tools to hack companies, and they have 24/7 call centers to assist them to attack those crown jewels of the company, so that they can ask ransom money and they can force those organizations. You have heard about double ransom, triple ransom exposures. So because of which this exposure has become very big. And when we look at the extortion money, which is practically covered under the policy, but as I said in my previous slide, that there are a few moving parts, there are a few moving areas which we need to address when we are talking about a ransom or extortion offering under the policy. So the first and most important thing, when you look at all these ransom demands, these are always in virtual currencies. And practically here in India, when we don't recognize these virtual currency as a legal tender, it becomes very difficult for Indian insureds to make the payment when there is a ransom demand. And for which what we have done practically is like we have created those tie-ups. One tie-up is Crisis 24, wherein these agencies help our insured to convert their Indian rupee or US dollars into those virtual currencies, and they make payment on behalf of these of our insured. The another thing what we have done in this area is like we have those tie-ups in place wherein these ransomware negotiators, ransomware consultant help the insured not only to negotiate better with those bad actors, but even to help them identifying those bad actors. Now, identifying those bad actors is very important, because as per the sanction conditions, if it is a sanction entity, if those bad actors or those hackers belongs to a sanction entity, neither you nor we as an insurers are allowed to make ransom payment to those countries, individuals or organizations. Now, practically for an insured, it is very important to identify them before you make or initiate any payment to them in terms of extortion money. Otherwise, you will have another problem coming in from regulatory body, that how can you make a payment to the sanction entity. And that's why like what we have done and how we have created a ecosystem wherein with the help of the law firms, with the help of these forensics firm, we help the insured to identify, substantiate whether that particular entity who's behind this particular cyber incident, whether it's a sanctioned entity or not. Once we help the insured to identify that, then subsequently we help the insured to reach out to those agencies like Crisis 24, wherein like they convert their Indian rupee to those virtual currency and make the payment on behalf of them. So that's the entire cycle through which we help our insured to make these extortion money paid under the policy. This is all about cyber and about the cyber policy coverage. I will be happy to answer if you have any question.
So, Nazim sir, some of the participants have mentioned their questions uh, in the chat box. So,
Can
I'll
you
just
ask
read
those
it out
questions?
to you. Yeah,
Yes, please.
I'll just read it out to you. Yeah, so first is that it will be great if you could share some examples of Indian market ransomware attacks, especially for financial service companies.
So Abhinav, like as I said, like practically out of 10 claims, 4 to 5 claims, what we identify, there is a ransom demand. And practically, it is just not limited to financial institution. In fact, very recently, the 2 claims which we have seen, one was a NBFC from Chennai, and the other one, what we have identified is uh, IT company which has been demanded a huge ransom. And in both these cases, like the ransom money has been paid, and especially I'm referring because see, practically, as I said, like many cases wherein the ransom money has been demanded, but again it depend on the insured and the kind of incident which has happened, that where you stand when it comes to these exposure, whether you are so compelled to pay the ransom money, you have no option but to pay. Practically insured, and the case which I'm referring, like very recent case wherein a significant amount of ransom money which has been paid, wherein a platform which this IT company was providing to other insurance companies in US has got compromised, and subsequently the ransom money has been asked. And they took the entire control of that particular platform, these hackers, and practically they were unable to function, and they were forced to pay the ransom money. Similarly, like the NBFC which I'm referring in Chennai, there are 3 locations got compromised. One was US, other one was Hyderabad and Chennai. And again with this company, the issue was those systems got compromised completely, and those systems were encrypted by those bad actors. So practically this company was not able to function, and they were forced to pay the ransom. In fact, the case study is so interesting that when this company claimed, stating that you're asking a 9 million ransom from us, and we are not such a large company, and we are not in a position to pay a 9 million ransom to you, the hackers over the email sent them their financials as well as Tata AIG policy copy, which was they extracted from their own system, the company's system, and they said that you do have money in your bank and you do have an insurance policy in which extortion is covered. So that's the way they have become smart, and like forcing the insured to like pay the ransom money.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah,
that was an interesting fact, Nazim sir. So I'll
yeah.
just
Yeah, Abhinav, I just want to add one thing. And when we are
mhm.
talking about, see, like practically the issue with us in India, and when you look at various reports, that's what they suggest, that we either ignore or don't accept this as a big exposure. Uh, when you look at us, like I think in my generation, practically everybody downloaded song from a site called song.pk. Now, without even knowing that site belongs to Pakistan, and every song which we downloaded comes along with a virus called Trojan. and it is one of the deadly virus through which they can control our system. So there are two very important things about cyber. One, I think we as an individual and country have to accept and understand and recognize this as one of the biggest exposure. And the second important thing, it is just not limited to those IT companies or financial institution. I can give you another case study which we handle again in 2017, wherein a real estate company from Mumbai got hacked, and 96 computers of that particular company got hacked. And believe me, like when I was underwriting that policy, I thought a manufacturing company will have what kind of exposure? Neither they have data like a bank or IT company, nor they have business interruption exposure, because even if their systems are not working, they will be still able to like lease or sell those properties. So I can tell you, like I as an underwriter haven't recognized the actual exposure. But when this incident happened, practically they were not working because 96 computers of that company, all the key stakeholders were encrypted, and they asked for a huge ransom money. So the point which I'm trying to make is just the exposure is just not limited to those data heavy company or financial institution. It is for all. Yes, Avinav, over to you.
Thanks, Nazim sir. I'll move on to the next question. So the next question is okay. The next question is similar to the first one. So I'll move on to the third one. Can you please share the turnaround time of claim settlement? Any help that you would provide for negotiating ransom? Also, how would the payment mechanism work in such cases?
Thanks for this question, Abhinav. And as I said, like when we talk about the end-to-end solution, this question actually gives me a space to speak about it. So when you look at large companies, let's say we're talking about the large IT companies or large banks, they have their own forensics firm. So if there is an incident, those guys like get involved and immediately start addressing the exposure. But when you look at these small companies, private limited companies, they practically don't even know whom to approach at that point of time. And we have practically seen people coming back to us asking that they don't know whom to approach. There is a denial of access attack on their system or similar incidents. And that's why like we have created all these tie-ups wherein starting from like the biggest of the best of best forensics firm, the big fours, the law firms, through which we have a tie-up. And just not the tie-up, we have the SLA in place, we have those negotiated rates in place, so that they start working with the insured as soon as they have been informed. And practically we have seen cases wherein insured has informed us, and within 2 hours agencies like CrowdStrike and all has taken control and started helping the insured to mitigate the situation. Another very important thing which I would like to highlight, that all these rates and the SLA has been negotiated well in advance. So the insured will save time. As I said, you're free to choose your own vendor. Policy doesn't restrict you to choose your own vendor. But as I said, when you look at most of these large firms, in fact, I remember the recent case which happened in December 23, wherein a Mumbai-based IT company has got hacked. They hired one of the big forensics firm. And when the forensics firm came to know that it's a AIG, Tata AIG insured, they immediately changed their rate, and it was almost double the rate what they have charged initially. And as soon as they came to know that it's a Tata AIG insured, they reduced their rate. Now imagine the impact what's happening. We as an insurer and you as an insured both are able to mitigate the exposure at right time. And similarly, even when it comes to quantum of the claim, because of these negotiated rates and tie-ups, we are able to even get the claim amount reduced significantly. Yes, Adarsh, over to you.
Okay, I'll move on to the next question. So next question is, which is a very common question, normally raised by the corporates to us only. So, how can a corporate arrive at an appropriate sum insured or cover amount for cyber policy? And are there any parameters for the same?
So Abhinav, see, there are areas which an insured can look at. which brings a big cyber exposure for him. So things like revenue, from where they are generating. When I'm saying revenue, that doesn't mean like bigger the revenue, bigger the cyber policy. No, it's not the case. You have to look at if you have revenue coming from those litigious jurisdiction, or the jurisdiction wherein the privacy laws are significantly like tight. I'm referring like US, Europe. If you do have exposure coming from those countries, you definitely need to worry about. And you have, let's say, data in your system which is a health data or a financial data, uh, then you definitely need to worry about your limit of liability, because you should be buying a higher limit. Similarly, when you have to look at your systems, that how much dependent you are on your system when it comes to your business interruption. And practically you should be checking with your team the business continuity plan. And also you're looking at like how fast you can recover from any such incident. This will help you to identify how much limit which you should be buying in terms of the business interruption losses. So these are the areas which you should look at while deciding the policy. But when you look at all the liability policy material of whether it's a cyber policy or a professional indemnity policy or a directors and officers liability policy, uh, it is always a question, because it's just not like a property policy wherein you take a per square feet rate and then decide on a sum insured. In these liability policies, when you look at the Bhopal gas tragedy, a company may be a 5,000 crore company, but it may have a 50,000 crore liability on them. And similarly, in cyber, we have seen cases wherein the companies have suffered more than 500 million US dollar impact due to cyber. So the best way, what we suggest, of course, like look at these areas, like what kind of data you hold, in which jurisdiction you play, what kind of audit mechanism which you have, what kind of systems which you have. Similarly, like as I said, like your business interruption exposure, what you see. Look at all this and decide. And the other thing which we as an insurer can help you is with the benchmarking. So let's say suppose you're an IT company or a pharma company or a financial institution, because you as a risk manager are also responsible or answerable to your management, that why and how you have identified or selected this limit. So there we help you with the benchmarking, which clearly reflect the buying trend uh, of the policy, of the cyber policy. So let's say, suppose, as I said, you being a pharma company, reach out to us. We will help you with a benchmarking wherein we will, without mentioning the name of the company, we will highlight whether it's a listed company or not, with what kind of revenue which they generate, which jurisdiction they generate those revenue, and what are the limits, cyber limits which they are buying. So we can help you with all that. And subsequently, I think that's the way you select your sum insured under the cyber policy or any other liability policy for that matter.
Okay, so I'll move on to next one.
Mhm.
Uh, can you please elaborate on the differences between cyber and crime, apart from already listed difference of first party financial loss?
Okay. See, that's again a very good question, a very relevant question, because normally people get confused when it comes to cyber and crime. First of all, both are separate exposures. When you look at cyber, cyber talks about a breach of data protection law, leading to a legal liability on you, or leading to a first party expenses which you may incur in terms of forensics and other costs, which we just discussed. So cyber is focused on the breach of data or breach of data protection law. Whereas when you look at crime, on the other part, crime is a, a policy which offer first party financial loss. So if there's any financial loss to the insured with respect to any fraudulent act committed by their own employee or by the third party, the policy do pick up those expenses, the loss, the first party loss the insured incur. Now, as I said, like there are a few things which you have to note. First, when I'm talking about these fraudulent act, either by the first party or by any other person uh, in the crime policy, there could be either cyber mean used or any other traditional means used. It could be counterfeiting, it could be forgery, it could be theft of fund. Those exposures get covered under the crime policy, immaterial of whether the means used to defraud the insured, whether it's a cyber mean or any other mean. So the ultimate purpose of the crime policy is to address the financial loss of the insured. Vis-a-vis, when you look at cyber policy, as I said, like it more to do with data, it more to do with those liability which may come with respect to breach of data or breach of data protection law.
Okay, thank you. I'll move on to the next one. For any claim reported, what are the documentation or details required to be fulfilled?
See, every liability claim, including cyber policy claims, are different, because when you look at a cyber incident, sometime it is just a forensics that somebody has breached your system and you identified that at right time and you are able to address that. So there it is a forensics expenses. You may need the forensics report. You may require the root cause analysis to be done. You probably like look at what you are doing in terms of improving your system so that you can avoid such losses again. Similarly, when you look at an extortion claim, there it's a very different claim from only the forensics getting involved, because here you will be involving ransomware consultant. You will be involving those companies like Crisis 24 who are paying on your behalf of you the ransom money. So, and similarly, when you look at even the business interruption claim, there you will have to look at your previous year financial vis-a-vis this year financial and substantiate the kind of loss which you have incurred. So every cyber claim, or in fact as a whole, when you look at every liability claim, is very different from one claim to other. It is not just those medical claim wherein you have discharge card, hospital bill, or investigation report and investigation bill or medicine bills. No, those are not the listed documents which we look at when it comes to the first and important thing which an insured should do when there is a cyber claim: immediately inform the insurer. And as I said, like informing us make a lot of sense, because we have all these tie-ups in place so that we can suggest the client that okay, these are the one. And I can tell you, like and I was speaking to my cyber risk consultant, and I was asking him that how we decide in which case we should be allocating, let's say, CrowdStrike, or in which case we should be allocating Mandiant or Arete or various other agencies or big four. And he was telling me, saying that Najam, we look at the organization, we look at the kind of impact which they have suffered. If practically, if it is a hotel or practically a hospital wherein the data breach has happened, it is more than crime. It seems to be a nation-backed attack, and there are agencies who are specialized to handle those situations. So there we involve those agencies like Mendiant, for that matter, who have a lot of political connects and the background through which they manage such kind of exposure. Wherein when you look at other cases wherein the motive is to make money, wherein extortion has been demanded, the data has been sold and up for sale on dark web, there we look at agencies like CrowdStrike who are specialized. Similarly, when if it is a financial institution, we practically ask them to look at going for a big four, because they are answerable to RBI, they're answerable to SEBI, they're answerable to various other regulatory bodies. For them, it makes sense to reach out to those uh, credible bodies, big fours, who have more substantiation in terms of their report than other forensics firms. So that's why, like, we always advise our insured that if suppose there is any cyber incident, I think it is very important for you to reach out to Tata AIG claims team to like discuss and then subsequently decide like the plan of action.
Thanks, Nazam sir. So I'll see if there are any question. Yeah. So one of the participant have requested to share the PPT that you have presented in the chat box, if that's okay with you.
I will share it with you, and then you can subsequently share it with the.
Okay. Okay. Uh, so I think that's it. Uh, is there any further question? So I'll just give you a couple of minutes to just mention any question that is left, or we'll proceed to end this session.
Thank you, Nazam, very much for sharing your view on rather very complicated topic, and the audience here are really interested to learn about this. That's why they carved out their time on a Friday evening and listen to this. So thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank
I
you,
think
Abhishek. Thank you so much.
I had to get good feedback. Great session. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nazam sir.
Thank you. Thanks.
Have a great weekend. Bye, everyone. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.